Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 2 of the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship. We are here at Silverstone this weekend for the second round of this year's running, and we are in the Giulia GTAm Extreme. I've been looking forward to seeing this one out on track. A very powerful car, and obviously everyone knows the GTAm version of the Giulia in the real world, and this one is just a little bit different from that. It's got a bit more race car DNA in it, shall we say, but it is a very quick and very enjoyable to drive car, apparently. We've had a couple of engine issues in testing. We believe they've been resolved now, so we should be able to be we should be good to go for this weekend's racing. It is currently Will Harper on provisional pole with just over 15 minutes to go in qualifying. Actually, no, correction, that is Andrew Harvey. Apologies. Of course, Will has had his little acronym changed for this year's running, so that is Andrew Harvey currently sitting on pole position with a very nice Gulf-inspired Giulia GTAm there. That is a personal favourite of mine. And then Andrew Whitehead's as well. If you just caught the introduction to the stream, then we have that as the thumbnail for the stream. Very nice looking car. He's currently 2/10 off him in P2. John Cole P3 as well, just within half a second there. So the top three battling it out here at Silverstone. It's a great circuit, I reckon, to start off the running in this car. But Colin Kennedy has just been able to set his personal best lap. Unfortunately, we weren't able to join him for it, with him not being on the timing tower, but he has gone onto provisional pole by about half a second. That's a very nice margin. Purple in sector 2 and sector 3. He's pretty much ran away from the rest of the field there. That was a very nice time from Colin Kennedy. Yeah, as I mentioned, bringing it all back in sector 2 and sector 3 there. So obviously nailing the Maggots-Beckett's complex there. As you can see, with the bridges there, the overhead banners, we have our own. We have a little bit of a twist on the regular Silverstone advertising there, so keep a keen eye out for little Easter eggs like that. But Colin Kennedy currently on that provisional pole then, and it looks like Andrew Whitehead looks to have actually lost a little bit of time to Andrew Harvey there, who has improved. We'll stay on board with him actually. Or will we? We'll go on board with Colin Kennedy because he's just gone purple sector 1 actually. So in this qualifying stint, hoping to improve even more. He's just about to head into the Maggots-Beckett's complex as he enters Maggots now, trying to just kiss the curb there, trying to carry as much speed as possible through this left-right hander. If you're used to the single-seater series, like the Super Formula car that we run in the single-seater series, or something like F1 or F2, there's so much less downforce on these cars that something like Maggots-Beckett's becomes even more of a challenge than it already is, as we see Colin Kennedy heading up towards the heading down the hanger straight and up towards Vale now, and then we have the club corner to round out the lap. Heading through Vale then. It was an improvement in sector 2 for Colin Kennedy. Can he drag it back in sector 3 and take an even bigger advantage at the top of the order for now? Let's see as he comes across the line. Will it be enough? It's not enough. Actually, no, it is. Sector 1 was a huge improvement there. I wasn't expecting that. Sector 3 he lost out a little bit of time on, but they must have both just been good enough there. Found another 3/10. He's nearly a second clear of Andrew Harvey in P2. That's a very nice lap from Colin Kennedy there. Will he be carrying on this stint? Let's see. Actually, he should be able to. The tyres seem to be fairly forgiving, although I say that, the back end just stepping out there. 530 horsepower on tap from a bi-turbo 2.9 litre V6, sounding absolutely brilliant, as you can hear with the audio. But we're staying on board with Colin Kennedy as he heads up into Brooklands. Carrying on with this lap then, even though the back end did get a little bit squirrely, so we're going to join someone else for the moment. We're going to join Andrew Harvey here, as he is currently in P2, although according to the timing system he's currently P3, so there's a little bit of a disparity between those two, so hopefully that will rectify itself before the end of the session. But Andrew Harvey does actually improve in sector 1 and sector 2, brings him only half a second behind Colin Kennedy now, still nowhere near as close as he would want to be, but that is a huge advantage, that is some rather large gains that he's made on that previous lap. So let's see as the session progresses, as the grip just gets that little bit better out on track, if he can improve that time even more, as does John Cole. John Cole now within a second of Colin Kennedy, but still it is Colin Kennedy who is absolutely dominating this qualifying session so far with just a couple of laps. He's only on his third lap at the moment, John Cole on his 6th fast lap. Andrew Harvey on his 5th fast lap. So Colin Kennedy looking fairly comfortable for the moment, without as much qualifying time as the other drivers. As we can see, quite an interesting camera view there, where the steering wheel seems to have fallen off. If you are an avid viewer of Top Gear, you might remember the Alfa 164 that got converted into a limo, which had much the same issue here. These Giulias seem to be suffering from that, so hopefully they'll get that sorted before the race. But Andrew Harvey, as I mentioned, closing up to Colin Kennedy there. The gold, rather large gold alloys, I believe they are centre lock on the GTAm, correct me if I am wrong. Looking very nice against what is quite a wintry and quite a frigid looking Silverstone, obviously echoing what the current conditions are like, I can imagine. Usually we are enjoying the dead of, or the slap bang in the middle of summer rather, when we go to Silverstone in this series, but I can still tell you that despite the way that it looks, the track temperature is a scalding hot 37 degrees, so there should still be ample grip out there for the drivers. As what other qualifying battles can we focus on? Let's go on board with Alan Matthews, as he is P6 at the moment. I was about to say he was improving his lap there, but abandoned it after Sector 1, so hopefully he can regroup and get ready to go for another attempt, as we'll go on board with Will Inglis. Will Inglis on for an improvement there, and it looks like John Cole's had a bit of a collision with Steve Knight there. He has had to retire from this qualifying stint, go back to the pits, and hopefully try and get another one. Both cars getting quite a fair bit of damage there, so he's going to have to spend a little bit of time to rectify that. As we go on board with Rob Whitney, he has just set a personal best lap, or we're trying to go on board with Rob Whitney. We're looking at Rob Whitney's rear wing. We're looking at the back of Rob Whitney's car there, obviously the GTAm missing its rear seat. Just a logo in their place, and the rear wing there was what we could see on Rob Whitney's car. We've got a few drivers out actually now as we enter the final stages of qualifying. We've got just over 10 minutes to go. We've got a few drivers now looking to improve their best time. George Brook to be on for a personal best in Sector 1. Alan Matthews, personal best in Sector 1. Mr. Will Harper, personal best in Sector 1. And Will Inglis, who we'll go on board with, as we see Rob Whitney just getting it a little bit wrong there. We'll go on board with Will Inglis, as he is on for a personal best Sector 1 and Sector 2. So he is finding a nice bit of time. He's got about 4 seconds to make up to pole, which is still Colin Kennedy for the moment. Colin is in the pits getting ready for his final, or what will I imagine be either his penultimate or his very last stint in qualifying. As we see Will Inglis heading round the club corner then, and across the line he leapfrogs up to P6, finds a couple of seconds in that lap. So that was a very nice lap from Will Inglis, good progression on display there. He leapfrogged Alan Matthews and is now starting to put the pressure on Barry Clayton perhaps as he enters the final stages of qualifying now, as we will go on board with, who will we go on board with? We'll go on board with Andrew Harvey. Andrew Harvey, not an electric Sector 1 for him, but a purple Sector 2. So he has taken that crowd in Sector 2 rather away from Colin Kennedy as he enters Vale now for what will be the final time, the final corner that he has to navigate on this lap, and he gets ready to cross the line. What will it be? We have the last gunning down to the start-finish line, and it's unfortunately not enough for Andrew Harvey on that lap. He lost out a little bit of time in Sector 3 as well, nearly a second slower than his previous best. Colin Kennedy looking like he's having a couple of difficulties there, although he's in the pits, so I'm not entirely sure why. The timing system's just told me he's been having a few crashes there, so that's an odd one, but we'll stay on board with John Cole. John Cole, very nice livery on John Cole's car actually, the snakeskin reminiscent of Alfa's / Sauber's earlier testing livery. He makes a small error on this lap and has to return to the pits as well to get ready for a final qualifying push, as we see no one currently on for a decent lap in terms of improvement for the moment. So let's see what happens as we get ready to enter the final stages of qualifying now. It is Colin Kennedy who has exited the pits now, so we'll stay on board with him as he gets ready, as he builds up towards one of his final qualifying stints for this session now. Colin obviously leading the standings for the moment after round 1. A very impressive performance in the touring cars. In the what I said was a GTA 1750, I'm very much wrong. It was the GTA 105, so apologies for that one. As at Goodwood, we saw Colin Kennedy taking home a fairly substantial amount of points, as we did with John Baker. Actually, John Baker in the AM Championship currently leading on about 50 points, I believe. He's taken away a very nice haul of points from round 1, and he'll be hoping to carry that momentum forward into this round as well. But obviously a very different challenge here in these cars. Such is the fun of this GTA Championship. You don't know what quite to expect really when you get ready for practice, when you get ready for these race weekends. We only have 3 or 4 tracks that we visit, but we have 4 differing cars as well, so each car obviously behaving just that little bit differently, especially the Giulia GTAm behaving completely differently to the GTA 105 that we're running just a fortnight's time ago. As we see Andrew Harvey still in the pits for the moment then, as who is that who's just made a very nice improvement? That is Andrew Whitehead, who has just jumped up to P4, about 1.1 seconds off the leading pace for the moment. He is fervently in that midfield battle then between him, Barry Clayton and John Cole. He could be in for quite an interesting weekend here. He's had not the start that he would have wanted to the well, both the single-seater and the touring car championships, having some issues actually. We were wondering why. We saw a couple of drivers in the last single-seater race having to return to the pits, but it turns out that content manager, I believe, is responsible for adding a teleport to pits button on the driver's steering wheels that Andrew Whitehead accidentally utilised a couple of times and ended up returning to the pits from what was, I believe, the lead of the race at one point. So a shame for him, but hopefully he has got to grips with that, and we won't be seeing that again, as we will go on board with Colin Kennedy as he's now on his fastest lap attempt. It's not a personal best in Sector 1 as he heads round Brooklands. Now he navigates into Luffield. Very tricky part of the circuit. Everyone obviously expecting the challenge that is Magus Beckett's, but forgetting that Brooklands and Luffield and into Woodcote is another part of the circuit where you can lose a lot of time here at Silverstone, this very high speed circuit. So still Colin Kennedy on provisional pole for the moment by about half a second ever since he posted that very competitive 153.4. No one else has been able to touch him really as he heads round into Beckett's on the exit at Chapel in just a moment's time. Will Inglis improving there to go P6 once again. He has found a nice bit of time there, but Barry Clayton is hoping to break away from that little pack as well, as he is on for a very nice lap there. Personal best Sector 1 and Sector 2, so we'll join him in just a second. But it is Colin Kennedy who we are focusing on as he heads down into Stowe now. It's purple Sector 2 for Colin Kennedy. That very crucial Sector 2 here at Silverstone, heading through that Magus Beckett's complex. He's made up a nice little bit of time, 50.4 seconds, which is actually only a few hundredths faster than Andrew Harvey's personal best, which was previously purple in Sector 2. But he comes round the club corner now across the line to improve his time even more. It's a purple Sector 3 as well, a 153.38. Very nice lap time from Colin Kennedy. There he's securing his pole position just that little bit more with each and every lap. We saw though on his previous qualifying stint, it was lap 2 that gave him the huge breakaway from the rest of the pack. There's a little bit of oversteer in the car for Colin there. Where is that? I believe that is heading through the village / the loop complex there, so he may have lost a little bit of time, but let's see as he heads into Sector 2. Now Sector 1 was a 30.9, I believe, maybe a 30, yes it was a 30.9 for Colin Kennedy in Sector 1. He's got a little bit of traffic to contend with. Let's see, will Jack Hodson get out of the way, or will he be focusing on his own qualifying session at the moment? Of course, he's well within his rights to do that if he's on for a fast lap. Colin Kennedy's going to have to try and navigate him as best as he sees fitting best, if you will. A little bit of lag coming into the session there. Hopefully that's just on my end as we go onto the right onto the tarmac as we head into Magus Beckett's in just a second. We've gone through Cops and now we have the aerial view of Colin Kennedy heading through Maggotts, getting ready to head into Beckett's there. Jack Hodson just on the apex of the corner there. Will that impede Colin Kennedy as he heads for what will be his penultimate, probably his penultimate qualifying attempt really on these tyres? It's not a personal best in Sector 2. Someone else has had a bit of an off there. That looks like George Brook Battersby. What's happened to George Brook Battersby there? He's found a little bit of difficulty there, so he may struggle with that one. But Andrew Harvey we haven't seen out yet. He may be leaving it until until the bitter end really. He may be leaving that until the very last minute to try and get the best track conditions, to try and get the best advantage in terms of traffic on circuit, to try and close that half a second gap. He's got his work cut out for him if he wants to cut away half a second, especially when it's against Colin Kennedy, but it's certainly possible. Let's see what happens now as we come into what will be the final few laps of this qualifying session. Colin Kennedy's nearly a second slower on that lap. It wasn't a lap that he wants to carry forward with him really, but I'm just noticing actually we've got quite the midfield battle building really. P10 down to P10 down to P12, P13. Only a few tenths separating those drivers there, so that is an indication as to what we can expect in the race. We could be on for quite an exciting race here in these glorious sounding Giulia GTAm Extremes. Brilliant looking car, brilliant sounding car, and by the sounds of things, brilliant driving car as well. See, Colin Kennedy still has some traffic to contend with, actually. It is Paul Millman out in front as they head through into Woodcote now. What will happen for Colin Kennedy here on the exit? He's able to get past Paul Millman. Paul Millman, very courteous during his qualifying session there, allowing Colin Kennedy to get past with relative ease. John Cole has now started his fast lap attempt, so we'll go on board with him. We'll have to kind of split between the two drivers. He's gone personal best in Sector 1. 30.7, is that 30.8, I believe. It's a very nice Sector 1 for John Cole, as he has some traffic of his own to contend with. Let's see how easily he can get past Jack Hodson before he heads into the Maggots-Beckett complex. You really don't want to be dealing with traffic as you enter this part of the circuit. You can lose out so much time. Obviously, these effectively road cars, although they are basically based on race cars, not quite as error dependent as like a single seater, but you still have few disadvantages really from traffic out in front, and it is another personal best sector for John Cole, who's found under 10th in Sector 2 here. He's on for a brilliant lap so far. Can he get closer to Andrew Harvey perhaps? He's going to struggle at this point in qualifying to make up a second, but he can certainly put the pressure on Andrew Harvey and maybe snatch a front row position away from him, as it looks like Andrew Harvey is still in the pit, maybe not able to get back muddle words. I'll try again. Get back out on track for this final part of qualifying now. But John Cole comes across the line. Will it be an improvement there? It is not, unfortunately, for John Cole. He lost out quite a bit of time in Sector 3. I imagine that is possibly to do with the not lap traffic, rather, just some traffic out in front. But for whatever reason, John Cole has had a bit of a stinker in Sector 3 and has to abandon this qualifying attempt, although he has one left in the bag now, as George Brooke-Battersby seems to be struggling with the car this weekend, sliding off, as does who is that there? Is that Rob Whitney? No, it is not Rob Whitney. I can't quite make out who that is, unfortunately, but someone returning to the pits there. Colin Kennedy, though. Colin Kennedy's just gone purple Sector 1. It wasn't exactly his strength so far in the session, but Colin has I think drawn something out the bag there, really. 30 points something or other. I can't quite see that, unfortunately. And we have hit 0 on the timer. So these are now the driver's final qualifying attempts as we go on board with Colin Kennedy as he heads through Maggots and Beckett's now. Or does he? Yeah, there he is. I couldn't quite see his car for a little while. I was worried the camera had kind of been left behind there, but we have been brought along with him as Colin heads through Maggots and Beckett's. Now the car bouncing around on the apex through Chapel, now down the hanger straight, pedal to the metal to try and bring up as much speed as possible. We're hitting about 175 miles an hour in the speed traps. Colin looking actually pretty much quickest in the straights there. Obviously this is an open setup championship. Drivers are free to change the car setup as they please to suit them, but it's not amazing in Sector 2 for Colin, and he abandons this lap because he feels fairly confident on pole for the moment, and he should do after an impressive qualifying performance. Half a second clear of anyone else on track, with Andrew Harvey unable to join him, unfortunately, at the end of the session to try and snatch pole away from him. Yeah, he seemed fairly comfortable with pole for a lot of this session now, so it bodes well for him in the upcoming double header, which we will get ready to enjoy in just a moment's time. We still have a couple of drivers out on track at the moment who is on for an improvement there. We have Will Inglis. Will Inglis does improve, but we start to lose the drivers from the timing tower. But I can tell you it is Colin Kennedy on pole then for round 1 here at Silverstone. Andrew Harvey rounds out the front row. Doesn't get a lap in at the end of the session, but it is enough for a front row starting position for Andrew Harvey. John Cole coming in third, and then Andrew Whitehead coming in fourth. It should be an exciting race that we will be joining you for in just a moment's time. So I'll see you then. Well, we have just under a minute until lights out here at Silverstone. We have 18 cars lined up on the grid. Oh no, is that 17 actually? It maybe counted myself in that tally there. But it is Colin Kennedy sitting on pole. Andrew Harvey rounds out the front row, although it's not too much of a front row really, here in second. And then John Cole in third, Andrew Whitehead in fourth, Will Inglis in fifth, George Buckbatsby in sixth, Alan Matthews in seventh, and Anthony Gray in eighth, Will Harper in ninth, and Andrew Brammer in 10th. We should be in for an exciting race here. The first time we will have the Giulia GTAm Extreme out for some racing action in this championship, and I'm looking forward to it very much indeed. We've got just over 10 seconds to go as the revs start to rise. The drivers getting ready for their launches away from the line. Who will get away quickest? Let's find out. We have 5, 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are just about to head off, and we are away. Plumes of tyre smoke as the drivers try to get off the line. These rear-wheel drive cars over 500 horsepower, certainly a challenge. Colin Kennedy not getting the best getaway there. Andrew Harvey looking like he was about to have the inside line there, but instead no, he's going to box off John Cole instead, as there seems to be a bit of an accident earlier, rather further down the field. I believe that involves Barry Clayton and Andrew Brammer. I think it involves a couple of people actually. Yeah, the order changing around quite substantially lower down the field, but it is Colin Kennedy who still leads for the moment with Andrew Harvey behind him, but Andrew Harvey is under pressure from John Cole. John Cole himself also under pressure from Andrew Whitehead. Is that Rob Whitney? No, that is Rob Whitney. No, it is Andrew Whitehead. Apologies there. But John Cole under braking into Brooklands, gets the move done on Andrew Harvey and is able to take P2 away. But for how long? Let's find out. Andrew Harvey trying to put that pressure back on John Cole then as we head towards Woodcut now. Quick on the throttle as quickly as possible to try and catch back up to John Cole, but it looks like he's going to be under pressure from Andrew Whitehead in just a few moments time. Only about 0.3 of a second separating these two now as we get ready to enter sector 2, and it is still Colin Kennedy leading this race for the moment then, about half a second clear of anyone else on track. Not as much as he would have liked. Usually Colin Kennedy has a tendency to kind of break away from the rest of the pack while they get embroiled in some battles, but that hasn't been the case so far. He's going to have to work for this one, I think, because there's a few pacey drivers behind him in this race, as it looks like Andrew Harvey has been able to break away just that little bit from Andrew Whitehead and able to catch back up to John Cole as we head down the hanger straight now. The cars benefiting just that little bit from some slipstream there. We see the rest of the field still heading through Maggots Beckett's. We've got quite a few cars on track this evening. We'll go and watch some of them. We're going to watch Alan Matthews under braking into Stowe. He's a little bit too far back maybe to get a move done on Anthony Gray there, but someone else we're going to focus on is further down the order. It is Rob Whitney and Guy Swarbrick as they are battling it out now, near enough side by side as they get ready to head into Vale. Rob Whitney getting the upper hand on the exit of Stowe, but into Vale is fairly clear of Guy Swarbrick at this point in time. Colin Kennedy able to break away from the rest of the pack then over a second gap between the two now. There's a fairly substantial battle building here as we head through club, involving about 5 cars. The battle for P1 was effectively P13, perhaps even P12. P12 that a little bit further apart then, but yeah, the battle for P13 at the moment. Paul Millman losing out just that little bit to Jack Hodson, and looks like he's now under pressure from Steve Knight. Anthony Gray and Alan Matthews battling out just that little bit. Then I think Anthony Gray's locked out ever so slightly. He was right on the tail of Alan Matthews, but seems to have dropped back just that little bit, although it looks like Alan Matthews potentially slowing down for him there, as we have quite a few cars occupying the same bit of the circuit there. Looks to be fairly chaotic, but the drivers trying to do their best to keep it clean for the time being. As who is that there? That is Barry Clayton, I believe. Yes, it is Barry Clayton, rounding out the order then, trying to get past Rosie Hodson then, as Paul Millman gets past Jack Hodson in under braking into Brooklands then. He's leapfrogged a couple of positions there, and now Jack Hodson feeling the pressure from Will Inglis, but Will Inglis gets tagged by Steve Knight. They come together. Barry Clayton is going to have to try and find a way past there. Is he able to? He's going to try and go up the inside. That's a little bit risky from Barry Clayton there, but it worked just about. He hung in there and was able to take the position away from Steve Knight. Will Inglis, luckily for him, not losing out too much, but there's a big contact between Steve Knight and Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton sitting in the gravel a couple. Last time we saw a car doing this, it was at a much higher speed, but thankfully everyone was okay that time, and everyone is okay here. Barry Clayton able to carry on, but he's going to be a fair distance behind the cars in front now, so this will be a little bit of a practice for the reverse grid race coming up in a few minutes time. I can imagine just over 20 minutes. In fact, we've got plenty of time to go here in race 1. John Cole then still sitting in P2, about 2 seconds behind Colin Kennedy. Now Colin Kennedy has been able to break away from the pack, setting a very impressive lap there at 153.6 with a full load of fuel on board. That is a very nice lap indeed from Colin Kennedy this early on in the race. Yeah, setting 3 purple sectors then, obviously, on lap 1 here, able to break away, just, oh no, it was lap 2 rather, able to break away from the rest of the pack. A little bit of oversteer on corner exit though. He doesn't want to do that too much. It will start to overwork his tyres and maybe convince John Cole to try and push back towards him, maybe to try and snatch that position away from him if he can force an error, but that doesn't seem to be the case for the moment. He's looking fairly comfortable out in the lead for the time being. There seems to be a bit of battle developing between, it is Jack Hodson and Steve Knight, that battle developing between them. Steve Knight under braking, sees a gap and goes for it. Excellent move from Steve Knight there. The door was left open for him and he sees that opportunity, but Jack Hodson wants that position back. They make contact as they head onto the Wellington straight on the exit of Aintree there. They kind of smashed together, but luckily no harm done, both able to carry on, and it is Jack Hodson who leads heading into Brooklands then, but for how long? Steve Knight looking very racy behind him, trying to use as much of the track as possible, riding over the apex there. Contact happening between these two again. There's a little bit of argy-bargy going on between these two drivers here as they're going to be on exit. They're near enough side by side. Steve Knight getting very close to the rear end of Jack Hodson's car. This is an electric battle going on between these two drivers then, as it looks like Jack Hodson able to break away just that little bit on the exit, heading through Woodcote, had that little bit of the upper hand in terms of speed. But for how long? It looks like Steve Knight is feeling fairly comfortable at the front end of the car, looking like he's able to stick the nose in, and it will deliver on corner entry, so maybe he can use that advantage to his benefit there and try and get back past Jack Hodson as we head through the Maggots-Beckett complex, heading through Beckett this time onto the Chapel curve. Then it is Steve Knight is getting ever closer to Jack Hodson, and now he has the benefit of the slipstream as we head down the hanger straight heading into Stowe. Then who's going to be braver under braking? It looks like Jack Hodson's going to be very brave under braking there, keeping that gap fairly wide between the two drivers, topping out in the speed traps at about 175 miles an hour, opting for a very liberal line on the exit of Stowe. In my experience around Silverstone, that is a line that I also opt for, because games don't really seem to pick up on that track limit there at Stowe. Contact between the two as it looks like Steve Knight able to get back past Jack Hodson heading into Vale then, carrying more speed into the corner, and he's past Jack Hodson as we start the next lap of the race. Now on to lap 3, and it looks like it is going to be Steve Knight's position to lose at this point in time. There's only about 0.4 of a second separating these two drivers then, as we see Andrew Brammer and Anthony Gray swapping positions heading down the Wellington straight. Then there seems to have been a fairly substantial accident between, no, it's not fairly substantial, it's just a little bit of rubbing is racing between John Baker and Will Inglis as they head down the hanger straight themselves. And it is John Baker sitting in the slipstream. He's going to try something on the braking. No, it doesn't look like he will. He's too far back for that type of move to stick at this point in time. But it looks like Will Inglis is trying to put pressure on Paul Millman. Paul Millman sitting in P13 now, as on the exit of Luffield, Will Inglis is able to size his way through and get past Paul Millman then. But for how long? Paul Millman's looking fairly speedy on the exit, heading through Woodcote, and maybe thinking about another move then as they head into Copse. They come together, luckily for Will Inglis, for the second time this evening so far. A bit of contact has not seen him facing in the wrong direction. Somehow at very high speeds that are on offer on the entry into Copse, he's been able to keep the car pointing in the right direction, so well done to him for that. He's still in this race for the time being, but if he keeps having little moments of contact like that, I'm not sure if for how long that will be the case. Colin Kennedy at 153.4. That is a very impressive lap time from Colin Kennedy at this point in the race. He's just breaking away from the rest of the field, really. He's about 4.5 seconds clear of everyone else at this point in time, riding over the curb there to try and explore the track as much as possible. And it looks like he was about to explore a barrier there, but was able to catch it and carries on. That gap falling just that little bit now to about 3.6 seconds. So that I imagine, yeah, that was the loop there that confused him a little bit. That caught him out, I imagine, just that little bit, and that has brought John Cole ever closer to him. But it doesn't look like he is close enough for the time being. Let's see who then is battling out on track at this point in time. It looks like it's going to be between Steve Knight and Jack Hodson, potentially. No, Jack Hodson just that little bit further back for the time being, and it seems to be that everyone has kind of found a nice little bit of track to occupy, a bit of an opposite to the the packed corners that were lap 1 and lap 2 rather. Seems to be everyone's found a nice little bit of air to relax in and start setting some decent laps in, as we are now fast approaching the halfway point in this race already, as we are on board with Colin Kennedy as he heads through Maggots Beckett there. with John Cole echoing behind, and then Andrew Harvey behind him as well. John Cole able to get past Andrew Harvey just a few laps ago, as it looks like Mr. Will Harper here, I was about to say we're about to get on board with, but I believe someone's just had a bit of an incident, have they, potentially? No, it looks like everything is okay there, but it is Barry Clayton able to get past Jack Hodgson. It's Jack Hodgson who had that little bit of an incident there, about 3/10 behind Barry Clayton already, but looking very racy behind him. Is he thinking about a move back past him as we head into cops with these two drivers? It looks like he might have been thinking about it, but he's going to be too far back to make that move stick, and he's going to have to stay behind him as we head through the Maggots-Beckett complex with these two drivers now. Looking very racy indeed, does Jack Hodgson, but Steve Knight has to enter the pits for whatever reason. I don't know if that's a bit of a teleportation issue like we saw over the past couple of rounds, maybe a fueling error or some penalties that he has to serve. I don't believe there's any penalties. I would have seen him flag up in my little kind of notifications box there, and I haven't so far this race. I think there's been a couple of corner cuts, but aside from that, nothing too much to report. But yes, not going well for Steve Knight then as he returns to the pit, and Will Inglis and Guy Swarbrick battling it out. Will Inglis getting past Guy Swarbrick now. He got past Paul Millman on the last lap and is now past Guy Swarbrick as well. He running a few seconds a lap quicker than Guy at this point in time. But it looks to be that Andrew Harvey now getting very close to John Cole as they head through Luffield. Breaking away just a little bit now is John Cole, but still firmly in the slipstream is Andrew, and they're going to head through cops in just a moment's time. Let's see what happens as we get ready for Sector 2, a highly technical part of this circuit then. Andrew Harvey in the Gulf livery inspired Giulia GTAm there, as I mentioned in qualifying, a personal favourite of mine. And it is glorious to see it in all of its max graphical settings, 60 FPS glory, unlike last week's single-seater round where we had a few technical issues with my graphics card. Just decided that it didn't want to be a graphics card anymore, and decided that the integrated graphics were going to have to put in the legwork in the end, it turns out. But we've got that rectified now. The graphics card is back in service and is allowing us to see these beautiful looking Giulia GTAMs in all of their glory as we head through the Stowe corner now, and Andrew Harvey just dropping off from John Cole just that little bit now. Closing the gap up as we enter Vale then. Looks like Andrew Harvey's feeling just that little bit more confident through the slower speed corners by the looks of things, and he's going to be ever so slightly closer to the rear wing of John Cole's car as they start the next lap now. Now on to lap 6 is Colin Kennedy, and he's just broken away from the rest of the field. Not helping John Cole's case is Andrew Harvey here, putting the pressure on him. He's going to be focusing far more on his defensive drive right now than trying to eat into that gap that Colin Kennedy has built up since the start of the race. Then it looks to be that they are fairly even in terms of pace. Looks like John Cole's car is just a little bit faster down the straight, so maybe sacrificing just something in the corners, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him too badly because they seem to be fairly evenly matched on the circuit so far, so it could be quite an interesting battle that develops between these two drivers then. As elsewhere on circuit, we've got a second separating Will Inglis and Rob Whitney, as Will Inglis is carving his way up through the order under pressure from Steve Knight then, but I believe Steve Knight is a lap down. He is indeed, so won't be battling Will Inglis for too long, or will he? It looks like he's maybe trying to think of a way up the inside, potentially. He's too far back from there, and I'm not sure he would go for that move when he is a lap down at this point in time. Will Inglis far more focused on trying to get past Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney rounding out the point scoring positions. There are obviously a few more drivers in the points in the pro standings alongside Rob Whitney, but he is side by side is Will Inglis. These two are side by side as we head through Woodcote now, and it is Will Inglis who edges out just that little bit further in front. He's going to have the inside line for cops. Will they come together? No, it looks like Rob Whitney is going to cut in behind Will Inglis. Will Inglis setting up the move nicely on the exit of Luffield and Woodcote, and reaping the benefits of it really. Now up into P10, he can focus on pushing towards Anthony Gray, Andrew Brammer and Alan Matthews, potentially even Will Harper as we enter the halfway point in this race now. Yes, he's got some nice pace, has Will Inglis. If we compare him to the cars around him, Will Inglis, his best lap being a 156.3. He's currently hovering around the 157s, but that's about half a second clear of Anthony Gray in front of him, and it's a couple of seconds clear than the cars around him as well. Mr. Will Harper also in the 156s in terms of best lap. but will English be feeling fairly comfortable then with that news? Obviously not able to hear from where he's sitting in the car at the moment, but he should be fairly happy with the fact that he seems to be on top in terms of pace when compared to the cars around him, and he improves even more there. 156.9 for Will Inglis now, breaking into that 156s, into those 156s as I mentioned. That was on his previous lap as well, so the fuel load starting to get just a little bit lighter now. Not quite quali spec yet, although not far off it. I can't imagine these 2.9 litre bi-turbo 500 horsepower V6s are the most fuel efficient, unless they're in a road car and you're heading down a motorway, because I've seen these things do about 40 miles a gallon if you're careful enough, if I'm not mistaken, maybe about 30 odd, but very impressive from the performance on offer. Anyway, there's no point talking about fuel economy, we don't care about that. We're at Silverstone enjoying some beautiful sounding cars heading around the circuit then, as it looks to be that the track is getting fairly happy in terms of conditions and the fuel load starting to get lighter before the tyres have dropped off, because a few drivers now on for personal best laps. Will Inglis as well as Andrew Brammer and Rob Whitney all setting personal best sector 1s as we started this lap, so should be feeling fairly comfortable that they can turn the heat up just a little bit as we enter the final stages of this race now. We have a little bit of a mixed tyre strategy going on. Most of the front runners opting for the soft tyre. In fact, everyone down to P11, Rob Whitney, opting for that soft tyre. If I'm not mistaken, rather, I was involved in discussions with the drivers a few days ago about what the soft tyre is behaving like, and there was some concern, I believe, that the soft tyre might not make it to the end of this race, although clearly that doesn't affect, or that doesn't worry or doesn't concern rather the leaders too much, because all of those top 10, as I just mentioned, running that soft tyre in the end. I believe we have turned down damage ever so slightly for this race to try and quell the engine issues that we are having during practice, so that seems to be working so far. We don't seem to have anyone who's kind of had to drop out as a result of a mechanical failure. This might be sim racing, but it is also an Alfa Romeo Owners Club Ram sim racing event, so it wouldn't be one of our events without some type of technical failure or mechanical failure, as it turns out, which is a rarity in sim racing. It looks to be that Andrew Harvey is right behind John Cole once again, as they are nearly side by side heading into Copse by the looks of things. Andrew Harvey was looking at a way past, but it wasn't to be so far. Andrew Harvey has to run off the circuit there, heading through Copse. He's carrying so much speed, as we see Colin Kennedy breaking away in the distance. These two battling it out for P2 has slowed down their own progress, which has allowed Colin Kennedy to be even more comfortable out in the lead for the time being. There's about 3/10 between the two now, as John Cole looking fairly more comfortable heading through Maggots Beckett's then, but let's see who's going to be brave under braking into Stowe. Andrew Harvey looking like he's trying to leave that as late as possible, seeing that the door was just that little bit open for him on the inside around Stowe, but he was quite far back, but he just parked his car in the right position to intimidate the car in front of him as we head into Vale now, as he tries to get ever closer to John Cole out in front. This seems to be the closest battle going on track at the moment, but it is one that we are going to thoroughly enjoy watching, for it is deciding the order on the podium. In terms of best lap, it is Andrew Harvey who loses out to John Cole. John Cole about 0.4 of a second quicker in terms of best lap pace, so if John Cole is perhaps preserving his tyres or his fuel for the end of the race, he's maybe thinking about one final quick push to the finish line to try and break away from Andrew Harvey, and all he's doing now is trying to keep him at bay, doing his best defensive efforts without exercising his tyres too hard to try and keep Andrew at bay before he sets some faster laps. That's just a possibility, though. We don't know exactly what's going on in these racing drivers' heads at this point in time. I imagine what is actually going on is just go quick. A very simple state of mind then, as Andrew Harvey is right on the rear bumper of John Cole as we head through Luffield now, and it is still John Cole who leads this duo at this point in time, but for how long? It's certainly not as close as it was on the previous lap. They were within 1/10 of each other pretty much, maybe 2/10 for a few corners there, and it doesn't look like that is the case on this lap either, but the battling has certainly slowed them down. At this point in time on the previous lap, they were only about 7 seconds behind Colin Kennedy. However, that gap has already grown to about 8.5 to 9 seconds, so this battling not helping their case by any means, but at this point I imagine they're far more enjoying the battle going on between the two, instead of focusing on the victory, because if they do not win this race, and there's about to be contact there by the looks of things. There is contact between the two cars, just a tiny little kind of nudge from Andrew Harvey there on the rear bumper of John Cole. He's getting that close to him now. He's trying to push that aggressively in order to get past him at this point. He's spent quite a few laps behind him now, is right up behind John Cole. It looks to be at this point in time that it is Andrew who actually has the upper hand in terms of pace, to the tune of about half a second on just a couple of laps ago. It was pretty much even Stevens on the previous lap, the lap that we just crossed the line for. So yes, Andrew Harvey potentially having just about the upper hand at this point in time, but it is anyone's call really. This is a very close battle, and these two clearly knowing how to battle each other well. They don't show any signs of stopping really, and they seem to be able to push each other to the limit without any type of big mishap really, so that is very enjoyable to watch. As we have already just over 5 minutes to go in this race. I can't believe how quickly this race has gone. These cars certainly look very well suited, as did the GTA 105s actually look very well suited to Goodwood, of course. These cars looking very well suited to Silverstone. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that these actually have a little bit of, not the road going version, although that is that borrows on a lot of racing technology, a lot of motorsport technology. I believe the mod that we are running has a lot of GT3 DNA in it, which explains why they look so well suited to Silverstone. I would thoroughly enjoy watching them at a circuit like Spa, for example, where I imagine they would also be quite fun, but we don't have that coming up at any point in time in the near future, as we see Barry Clayton getting past Guy Swarbrick there for P12. And in terms of the AM race at the moment, something that I just thought we should focus on for the time being, it is Guy Swarbrick who actually leads that AM race then, under pressure from Paul Millman perhaps towards the end of this race. There's only about 2 seconds separating these two, and there's 5 minutes to go. In terms of pace on track at the moment, it is in fact Guy Swarbrick who has the upper hand, running the hard tyre as well, so playing it very conservative in terms of tyre strategy, which means it should afford him some extra grip towards the end of the race. He should have a little bit of life, a little bit more life left in the tyres, and he should be able to push harder at this stage. So Guy Swarbrick looking fairly happy in the lead of that AM race at the moment then. Paul Millman just set his personal best running the medium tyre, is Paul Millman actually, as is John Baker. Yeah, a little bit of a mix of strategy for the AM race at this point in time, but it looks like it is actually, as I mentioned, Guy Swarbrick has the upper hand in terms of pace, about a second clear of Paul Millman for the moment, and then John Baker behind him as well. John Baker obviously leading the AM Championship at the moment, although this push from Colin Kennedy will start to switch that up just that little bit, start to put that pressure on John Baker as we're on board with Andrew Harvey as they deal with some lap traffic there. And he's trying to get ever closer to John Cole. The gap still stands at about 3 or 4 tenths of a second, maybe even 5 tenths. Yeah, here it is, about 5 tenths of a second. At no point has the gap been over a second for the past few laps. It is a very impressive example of wheel-to-wheel racing action from these two here, as Alan Matthews gets past Will Harper there. Will Harper up into P7 at the moment then, as he is losing out there. Is he having engine issues? I think he might be having engine issues. He seems to be running really quite slowly down the Wellington straight there, but seems to be able to carry on through Brooklands and Luffield, so maybe not losing out too much in terms of engine then, and just conceding the position for whatever reason he saw fit. But it is Alan Matthews who leads this little trio then, but it looks like Andrew Brammer is trying to find a way past there as they are side by side heading into Copse. Who is going to come out victorious there? It is Alan Matthews who parks his car absolutely perfectly, just making his car as wide as physically possible, but it is Will Harper out of nowhere all of a sudden who comes up the inside, or tries to come up the inside to get back past. Was past Alan Matthews at one point, now drops behind him again. It is now under pressure from Andrew Brammer, as it is Alan Matthews who leads this trio as we exit Magnus Beckett's now. So these three looking to battle right up until the bitter end there, as Will Harper tries to find a way past there, snaking around, squirreling around. Who's going to be braver under braking as we head into Stowe? It is Will Harper who, from further back, looks like he might have got the position, might have got the move done there. Under braking, Will Harper seals P6. A very nice effort from him at this late stage in the race, but Alan Matthews is certainly not done yet. He's snaking around looking for a way past. A lock-up from Will Harper heading into Vale then. That won't help his cause by any means. He loses out a little bit of time. More importantly, overstresses the tyres and potentially losing grip at this point in time. But it is Alan Matthews who, heading into turn 1, might have the inside line of his brave love. No, Will Harper is going to defend from that. as Alan Matthews uses as much of the track as physically possible there to try and find a way past, but it looks like Alan Matthews is now closer to the jaws of Andrew Brammer as we head into the farm curve, heading into Village now. And yes, it is Will Harper who comes out victorious from the straight, but a big snap of oversteer on the exit of the loop won't help him by any stretch of the imagination there. That brings Alan Matthews right back into play, carrying more speed onto the Wellington straight there. They are near enough side by side. Who's going to be brave at underbraking as we head into Brooklands now? It is Alan Matthews who has the inside line, able to take the move back underbraking, much in the similar fashion to how Will originally took it. And now Will is under pressure from Andrew Brammer all of a sudden, as Andrew Brammer is brought back into this title fight there. It feels like a title fight as he's brought back into this battle for P6, and he's dropping back from Alan Matthews is Will Harper, now side by side with Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer takes P7 away from Will Harper. Will Harper having that inside line though, should be able to defend the move from Andrew Brammer, but Andrew Brammer's a lot closer than he would have thought. They're side by side on the exit of Cops then as we head into Maggots. Who's going to come out on top? It looks like it's going to be Will Harper for the time being, but for how long, as Andrew Brammer seems to be fairly comfortable, seems to be fairly pacey right behind Will Harper there in P8. So even at this late stage in the race, we've just hit 0 on the countdown timer. The battle's still raging on then. These three are the closest on track at this point in time, but it is Colin Kennedy who is leading this race still. We haven't seen that much of him, as seems to be typical fashion now. He's on the penultimate lap of this race, crossing the line just in the nick of time to get that penultimate lap in now. About 13 seconds clear of everyone else. He's done an impeccable job in this race. Broke away in the first couple of laps and hasn't looked back since, not made a single error, and seems to be getting ready for race 2 in his head, I am sure now, thinking of a way back up through the field for the reverse grid race that is coming up in just a few moments time. But we'll go back on board with this battle, which seems to have just about fizzled out by now. I'm not sure how much longer that could have gone on for. I always question that when you see such close racing going on for so many laps between so many cars, but I'm never disappointed so far in the AROC Racing Leagues as we are entering the halfway point of round 2, and there's been plenty of battling action already. It looks like Alan Matthews a little bit slow off the exit of Aintree there. And there's allowed Will Harper to catch back up just that little bit. Trying to get very brave under braking is Will Harper there, but he wasn't going to get that move done from that far back, I don't think. Would have been very impressive if he had though. But the tyres getting that little bit older now, although the fuel load's getting lighter, so he's probably starting to feel just that little bit more comfortable in the car. Although maybe not. I haven't spoken to the drivers actually, you never know. Often it can be the case that the dynamics are upset just a little bit. Who's gone off there? Who has gone off? Is that Will Harper? No, it's not. It's not. Alan Matthews, it wasn't Will Harper, of course it wasn't. Is it Rob Whitney? It's Rob Whitney, I believe, who just about went off there. Still, Guy Swarbrick leading the AM race for the moment as Colin Kennedy starts the final lap of this race, so we'll stay aboard with him as he heads round Silverstone for one last time here in race 1, or will be. Looks like there has been a trading of positions between Anthony Gray and Will Inglis. Will Inglis pushing his way back up to P9. He's had a nice recovery drive in this race and should be looking forward to the reverse grid race, which he seems to have had some practice for in this race already, as we go on board with Colin Kennedy heading down the Wellington straight now, exercising that 2.9 litre bi-turbo V6 right up until the rev limit, hitting speeds of about 172 miles an hour in this race so far. So his speed trap times not quite as lofty as they were in qualifying, but still impressive nonetheless. It looks to be that John Cole behind him was top dog in terms of speed trap in this race at 174 miles an hour for John Cole, but it is Colin Kennedy who we are focusing on as he heads down towards Cops now. He just wants to get in a nice, comfortable, safe lap. He doesn't need to pull any heroics with such a huge lead. He just needs to bring the car home safely, make sure he's got plenty of fuel for the final lap, and enjoy race 1 victory. So hopefully no errors at this point in time for Colin Kennedy. I've said at this point in time a lot in this race, I apologise for that. Guy Swarbrick having to enter the pits from the lead of the AM race there. What is going on for Guy Swarbrick there? Hopefully not an error for him. Maybe, yeah, that's an odd one to enter the pits this late on in the race. That promotes Paul Millman up into P13, but it is Colin Kennedy who we're going to have to stay on board with it as he comes around the final corner for the final time in just a few moments' time. Yes, what has happened there now is the case that Paul Millman leads this AM race all of a sudden for him. I'm sure he's going to be fairly happy with that as we are on board with Colin Kennedy as he comes round club for the final time here in race 1. And after a decisive start to the race, dominates race 1 and comes home with the win. Well done to Colin for an impressive race 1 here at Silverstone. He's about 15 seconds clear of John Cole as John Cole rounds club for the final time himself, along with Andrew Harvey. Coming home P2, John Cole then. Commiserations to Andrew Harvey for a very well fought race there. He was really fighting for that P2, but it wasn't to be for him, unfortunately, in the end. And as we see, Andrew Whitehead not too much. We didn't see too much from him actually, which is a shame because I really love that livery. But we didn't see too much from him. He just had a nice, calm and kind of quiet race there, which is by no means a bad thing. Taking home P4, a nice haul of points for him there. He's setting himself up nicely for the reverse grid race in just a moment. As we see George Brook Battersby coming home in P5 once again, like Andrew. A very quiet race there. Should be fairly happy with that. Alan Matthews then, after an intense battle towards the end of the race, comes home P6. Andrew Rammer P7 ahead of Will Harper. Commiserations to Will Harper for losing out in that battle between this trio here, but it was exciting to watch regardless of anyone's position. As we see Will Inglis coming home P9 and Anthony Gray P10. Someone enjoying some victory donuts there. Or not victory donuts, rather. It is Alan Matthews. So, celebrating victory out of that pack of 3 there. But good to see some donuts to round out the race nonetheless. Anthony Gray P10. Barry Clayton P11. Rob Whitney coming home, or trying to come home P12. He's struggling in terms of fuel or engine by the looks of things there. And is going to, unfortunately for Rob, is going to have to, I imagine, retire from this race if he can't quite make it to the finish line. But it is Paul Millman coming home P12 then to take the AM race victory. What a shame for Rob Whitney there. John Baker overtaking him, coming across the line P13. Guy Swarbrick coming across the line P14 in the end. Well, that was certainly a very exciting race 1 as we join Colin Kennedy as he returns to the pits. Hello, there is me in the 75 with the hazards on, draining the battery, of course. Yes, that rounds out race 1. I'll catch you in a few moments' time as we get ready for the reverse grid race here at Silverstone. And we have just under a minute to go until lights out here for race 2, the reverse grid action of this weekend, the doubleheader here at Silverstone for round 2 of the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship. It is Rob Whitney who sits on pole after a very unfortunate end to race 1. I wonder if that was tactical, Rob. Did you think you would accidentally have a little bit of an engine issue, some sort of a multi-air failure or something, and then put yourself on pole for reverse grid, possibly? Who knows? Barry Clayton in P2, Anthony Gray P3, Will Inglis P4, Mr. Will Harper P5, Andrew Rammer P6, Alan Matthews P7, Andrew Whitehead P8, Andrew Harvey P9 and John Cole P10. But we have just under 10 seconds until lights out now, and we are ready to go here for this reverse grid race coming up in just a second. There's 4, 5 and 6 red lights on the gantry, and the engines revs rise, and we are away. Rob Whitney getting a very slow start there. Barry Clayton able to basically sweep past him there as we head into turn 1. He has the inside line, just Barry Clayton, and will take P1 away from Rob Whitney as we start the first lap of this race. It's been a big crash further down the order by the looks of things, so we'll try and see what went on there, although I think everyone's actually made it through all right. Just a little bit of trading paint going on as we see someone getting a bit of a tank slapper on there. Who is that? I believe that is possibly Anthony Gray there. Yes, it is Anthony Gray getting a bit of a tank slapper on. Andrew Whitehead pointing the wrong direction on the circuit, and someone else having a big crash down below. That is, I believe that is Rosie Hodson and Mr. Paul Millman there having a bit of difficulty. Steve Knight as well off the track on the exit of Aintree. Aintree has been a little bit of a car killer by the looks of things, but in all of this chaos going on as we see some drivers now heading around Luffield. Colin Kennedy has found his way up to P4 already, but we're not even halfway through the first lap, and Colin Kennedy is already kind of nipping at the heels of the podium. He's got Rob Whitney to get past, as does Barry Clayton as well, but Will Inglis has found his way up to the lead of this race all of a sudden. So Will Inglis, with that impressive pace that we saw, fighting his way up through the field in race 1, will be hoping to break away from this pack here, leading race 2 for the time being. John Cole led up into P5. He's got past Anthony Gray now. Anthony Gray, I imagine, had a little bit of damage on his car after the start to that race, after the start of this race rather. May have to be a little bit careful with how he treats the car heading into this race now. As side by side are Andrew Harvey and Jack Hodson as they head onto the hangar straight then, and they're still side by side. Who's going to be brave under braking then? It looks like Andrew Harvey having the inside line, gets the move done under braking up into P10 for Andrew Harvey then, as it looks like it is currently leading the AM race. It will be, I think it is actually John Baker leading the AM race at the moment, then up in P9 leading this pack of cars, but for how long, that is the question, because Andrew Harvey is looking at a move up the inside into Club, the very last corner of the lap there, still neck and neck, side by side pretty much, but Andrew Harvey down the Hamilton straight there, able to get past, takes the inside line there, gets a nose out in front, and is now up into P9. Colin Kennedy has got past Rob Whitney there on the exit of the loop by the looks of things, and is able to seal that move. Steal the deal there, up onto the podium for Colin Kennedy, and John Cole is hoping to follow suit in just a few moments time. He's quicker on the exit of Aintree down the Wellington straight then, had the advantage of the slipstream for just that little bit, and under braking takes the inside of Brooklands and gets the move done up into P4 for John Cole as well. So nipping at the heels of Colin Kennedy, so not allowing him to break away like he did in race 1, but we seem to have had some further difficulties for some other drivers potentially. No, it is just the order changing around further down the field, as Andrew Whitehead is somewhat out of position there, fighting with Jack Hodson after an unfortunate spin for him at the start of lap 1. Near enough 3 wide heading down the run into Copse there, but that isn't going to work through Copse itself, so obviously a little bit of a concertina effect going on there, and the drivers following each other through Copse as we get ready for Magnus and Beckers then. The field's staying relatively close actually, only kind of a few second gaps at most separating these little clusters of cars that are heading around the circuit as we speak. John Baker leading this little pack here once again, but for how long, that is a question, as Andrew Whitehead is looking for a way past side by side on the exit of Chapel Curve there, and is eking out in front just a little bit, but should be able to seal the move under braking, has the inside line there and does indeed do so. But now John Baker will be focusing his efforts on Jack Hodson behind him. Jack Hodson is also an AM runner, so the battle for the AM race is certainly hotting up as we see John Cole getting past Colin Kennedy. What's happened to Colin Kennedy? Has he had to enter the pits? I think he's had to enter the pits. Colin Kennedy into the pits there. That is going to upset him somewhat. That is going to set be a bit of a setback for him. He's going to have to drop all the way back to the bottom of the running there, and will I imagine not be particularly happy with that one. That basically gives him just under 20 minutes to try and climb his way back through the order and back up to the lead of this race. And the reason I say that is he did exactly that just a few short days ago. So let's see if he can pull that manoeuvre again, as Anthony Gray seems to have dropped back a little bit. In fact, he's gone off the circuit, as has Rob Whitney. I wonder if these two are related there. Rob Whitney's spinning out, trying to get back on track there. Tyre's not particularly happy, I am sure. John Cole up into P3 then, and Barry Clayton trying to find a way past Will Inglis. I'll tell you what, isn't a way past, it is Will Inglis getting onto the gravel on the exit there. He doesn't want to do that too much because that will start to considerably slow him down. But John Cole setting a purple sector 1 behind the two leaders then. He is looking fairly comfortable for the moment in terms of pace. We saw he knows how to keep up pretty much with Colin Kennedy. Colin Kennedy is pretty much out of the picture now, so it should be a perfect opportunity for him to take a win here if he can get past Will Inglis and Barry Clayton. Obviously two very experienced drivers we've seen certainly know how to pull off an exciting race, so John Cole's going to have his work cut out for him if he wants to do that. Speaking of some exciting action going on, it is Rosie Hodson and George Brook Battersby battling it out as they enter Maggots Beckett, although it looks like Rosie's dropping back just that little bit from George as they enter the sweeping S's at high speed. But these three rather still embedded in a battle really. No signs of slowing down for these three drivers on the exit of club then, as it looks like Barry Clayton just dropping back a little bit from Will Inglis this time round. Will Inglis pick up the pace, takes his best lap of the race so far, but John Cole in the 155s just that little bit higher up in terms of pace compared to the cars in front of him, but he's got his work out for him trying to get past them. It's one thing to be quicker, but it's another thing to get the overtake done, and it looks like he has done that on the entry into the loop there, taking P2 away from Barry Clayton, and should, I imagine, be focusing his efforts on Will Inglis, just about half a second ahead of him now, as he has the advantage of the slipstream, although I don't think drivers seem to be chasing the slipstream too much in these cars, so maybe not as powerful as I expected heading down the Wellington Straight as they enter Brooklands now, as I mentioned in race 1, a place where you can lose a lot of time. I've accidentally just turned my turbo down. I don't know if you can see that there. So it's good to know that the camera car should be being quite economical throughout this race. I've obviously decided to turn the engine on after having drained the battery in race 1. But there's only a tenth or so between John Cole and Will Inglis as we enter Cox now. That gap has still pretty much stayed consistent there, so these two pushing each other right up until the ragged edge here. There's John Cole still in P2 for the moment, but for how long as they enter Maggots Beckett now? Will Inglis looking very racy, trying to cut as much of the corner as he can in order to save as much time as possible, and it certainly works for him heading through Maggots Beckett there. John Cole losing out just a little bit, although things have brought it right back, carrying a lot more speed on the exit of Chapel now. They're going to be pretty much side by side as we enter into Stowe there. In fact, it is John Cole who edges out in front before the corner even approaches, before we even have the braking zone. He looks like he had the move sealed, but under braking, Will Inglis was much braver, had the inside line, able to take back the lead, but for how long? They are side by side once again as we enter the Vale chicane now. It is Will Inglis who edges out in front, but John Cole has the inside line. A little bit of contact between the two as we try to defend there, but side by side once again. But John Cole this time now in P2 under pressure from Barry Clayton. All of a sudden this battling has slowed these two down out in front, but Barry Clayton back into the action, and it is John Cole who leads heading into turn 1, but for how long, who knows in this battle. Barry Clayton is right up in there with those other two drivers. There's a substantial amount of contact. I imagine it will change up the order. Barry Clayton, I thought, was about to find a way past heading into the farm curve there, but didn't, unfortunately for him. John Cole leading this race then, but certainly under a lot of pressure as we speak. Barry Clayton about 5 tenths of a second behind Will Inglis now, has the advantage of the slipstream, as does Will Inglis. But Will Inglis maybe thinking about a move under braking. We saw how brave he was under braking heading into Stowe. Can he pull off the same type of manoeuvre once again? He thought about it, I think, but as we head around Luffield, it looks like he's going to be dropping back just that little bit now. The gap for the first time in quite a while, going over half a second. It feels like miles in comparison to the lap that we just saw. Colin Kennedy back in the session now then, a 153.7. That is a beautiful lap from Colin there. What a shame he is putting it in down in P18 for the moment then. George Brook Battersby and John Baker battling it out. John Baker currently leading the AM race for the time being. Yes, he's past Paul Millman there and is battling George Rafferty at the moment. But it is the battle out for the lead of the race that we are focusing on here. John Cole still leads for the moment, about 0.4 of a second quicker. It's by no means secure, but Will Inglis soon be under pressure from Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton, towards the end of the previous lap and the start of this lap, looked quite racy. Looked like he was getting ready to get involved in this battle for the lead of the race, and might be trying to do that still as he starts to put the pressure on Will Inglis. Will Inglis made a tiny error on the exit of Stowe there. Barry Clayton around the outside, under braking into Vale. Looked like he just about had the move done. Does he have the move done? I think he does. The switchback there has the inside line for the next corner, able to take the position from him with a little bit of contact. They are side by side on the exit of Club now, heading down the Hamilton straight. Barry Clayton once again going to be on the outside of the corner, breaks that a little bit earlier this time, gives Will Inglis the position back, but for how long now then? Barry Clayton is trying to use as much of that tarmac as possible by the looks of things. Seems to be very confident in the front end of the car. Gets the move back on him, heading into Village. Up the inside, heading into the loop there. Is he still in P2 for the time being? I think he is. This battling has certainly slowed these two down. It's allowed John Cole to break away by the tune of about 2 seconds now. But Barry Clayton pushed very wide there on the exit of the loop. Is he able to get back on track? He is, but with a fairly larger gap between the two cars now than about 7 tenths. As I mentioned on the previous lap, feels like miles. Anything over half a second all of a sudden now. But they've dropped back by about 3 seconds behind John Cole, and these two now kind of dropping back themselves. Barry Clayton hoping to get back closer to Will Inglis. I believe in terms of outright pace at the moment, previous lap, Barry Clayton much faster by about 0.4 of a second. That's a huge gap at this point in the race. And in terms of best lap as well, Barry Clayton seems to be a little bit happier with the car in this race, so he'll be trying to find a way past Will Inglis as quickly as possible, as we see Andrew Harvey getting past Alan Matthews further down the field. Alan Matthews looked to be in P4 for quite a while there, so Andrew Harvey doing well to get past at this stage in the race. We are fast approaching the halfway point already in race 2, this reverse grid race to round out the weekend's running here at Silverstone in the Giulia GTAm Extreme, as we see John Baker dropping back behind Mr. Will Harper. Mr. Will Harper somewhat struggling this weekend. He's been doing very well in these single seaters so far, but perhaps not quite gelling with the Giulia GTAm, or maybe just a little bit of bad luck. That is the exciting part about this GTA Championship. You never know where a driver might be best suited to a particular car. Obviously some cars' characteristics just suit drivers differently to others. As we see, Will Inglis a little bit slow on the entry into Club, rather. That has allowed Barry Clayton to come right back up, side by side down the Hamilton straight. Now Barry Clayton's going to have the inside line this time, but Will Inglis is going to hang it around the outside and still defend anyway. Excellent defensive move from Will Inglis. He stayed in P2 for the time being. Paul Millman dropping back there. He looked like he could be competing with the for the lead of the AM race at one point in the time. Unfortunately, a little error there by the looks of things. Seems to have dropped him quite far back in that battle, unfortunately for him. But it is Will Inglis who still is in P2 at this point in time, but for how long there's one for tally. But it looks like Barry Clayton will probably be trying to hunt him down in the later stages of the lap again. It seems to be second 3 where Barry Clayton seems to be quite comfortable, and he can potentially bridge this gap. It currently stands at about 7 tenths of a second. Barry Clayton making up quite a bit of time around Lucas there. But as we look elsewhere in the order, there is a bit of a battle forming between Rob Whitney, John Baker and Mr. Will Harper here. In terms of pace on track at the moment, it is Mr. Will Harper who comes out on top. 156.5 is his best so far, but I think they all had errors there, or Will Harper and John Baker having errors there, because their last laps were over 2 minutes. John Baker running the medium tyre and Will Harper on the soft, as was Rob Whitney. I think a few more drivers opting for the soft tyre in this race. Then we still have Guy Swarbrick on the hard tyres and a couple of medium runners, and then everyone else on the soft set. Obviously changing their minds after race 1, learning that just a little bit more about the tyre compounds. And obviously these earlier races in the championship are do have a bit of a steep learning curve to them as the drivers get more comfortable with the car, get more comfortable with how they treat the tyres as we navigate the different cars and different tracks, such as the nature of this championship. John Baker dropping back then behind Rob Whitney now. Only a position ahead of Guy Swarbrick, because Guy Swarbrick getting past Rosie Hodgson there, up into P13 for Guy Swarbrick. You've got about 6 seconds between him and John Baker. Can he close that gap in the just over 10 minutes that we have remaining in this race now? I don't know. It'll be a very tall order for him, but it's certainly doable. We've seen more miraculous things happen in this series just that one little error, just that one little mistake can see John Baker soon under pressure from Guy Swarbrick. As we see, it looks to be that the battle between Will Inglis and Barry Clayton has somewhat died down. Andrew Harvey has seemed to have found a nice bit of pace up into P4 for the time being. Again, add another one to your tally. Yes, Andrew Harvey all of a sudden up into P4. He'll be hoping to close in on the podium, potentially get himself another spot on the podium. He'll come home from this weekend with quite a nice haul of points there. Colin Kennedy obviously out of the running. That sets his champion charge back just that little bit, and will be good news for the likes of John Cole, Andrew Harvey and Andrew Whitehead. Andrew Whitehead not having the best start to this race, up into P6, so still a mighty effort from him as we enter the final 10 minutes of this race. A mighty effort from him to be up in P6 at this point in time. Barry Clayton looking quite racy behind Will Inglis once again. He'll be hoping to push Will Inglis, even if he doesn't want to get past him. They want to work together potentially to make sure that Andrew Harvey isn't quite so close to him, but Will Inglis has a bit of an error on the exit of Chapel. They are now side by side as they head down into Stowe. We're going to stay on board with Andrew Harvey because we have quite a nice view of this here. Barry Clayton has the inside line there, under braking, gets that move done, back up into P2 for Barry Clayton. All this battling has allowed Andrew Harvey to catch right up to the two cars out in front of him. So all of a sudden, once again, it is a freeway battle. It was a freeway battle for the lead, now it's a freeway battle for the podium. So let's find out what happens. As we see, it looks like Will Inglis taking a much tighter line on the exit of Vale there. That allows him to catch up just that little bit to Barry Clayton, as Andrew Harvey was quite a bit quicker than Will Inglis on that previous lap there. Almost having a bit of an error there. Kicked up a lot of dust there over the curb. The car looked a little bit unhappy, but able to salvage it there. So no major ill effects from that. As we see him getting right up to the rear bumper of Will Inglis' car as we head through the loop now. He's potentially thinking about a move around the inside of Aintree there, possibly. No, he's too far back, so has to benefit from the slipstream down the Wellington Straight instead. Really thinking about a move on the braking? Let's find out. As we enter Brooklands now, no, he's going to go around the outside, play the long game, play the safe game, play the safe strategy. We've still got 8 minutes to go. It's about a 10 or 11, about 10 or 11 lap race. We are currently 8 laps into that, so we've still got a few more navigate. In fact, no, it'll be way more than 10 laps. Ignore me, ignore my terrible maths there. We've still got a few laps of this race, shall we say, for Andrew Harvey to get the move done, and it looks like he might be trying to get that done as we head through Copse now. Then somehow Will Inglis has been able to keep him behind there, but he was right on the rear wing, right behind Will Inglis was Andrew Harvey, but he's had to drop back just a little bit as they head through Maggotts and Beckett's. All this battling will be slowing down these drivers. It's allowed Andrew Whitehead and Alan Matthews to be brought back quite literally back into the picture. But as we progress into the final stages of this race now, we may see this three-way battle potentially even turn into a five-way battle. It looks like Barry Clayton, if he can break away from this field, could actually potentially still be in with a shout for the lead. We've seen some impressive pace from him at this point in the race, only a few tenths off the best lap of John Cole, and in terms of current lap time is actually about 0.6 of a second quicker than John Cole out in the lead. So if he can set his mind on the offensive push up towards P1 there, forget about the defence, allow Andrew Harvey, who's got past Will Inglis now, allow those two to battle it out. He can really set his sights on the lead if he plays his cards right. Let's find out what happens. Although it looks like Andrew Harvey is even pacier than Barry Clayton at the moment. Yes, he is by about the tune of about 0.3 of a second. Andrew Harvey has the upper hand, and by the tune of about a second in terms of best lap, Andrew Harvey is looking very racy. So Barry Clayton's going to have to work out for it now, as we have a 4-second gap between these two cars and the lead of the race, and the gap between these two cars standing at only half a second as we head down the Wellington Straight now. Andrew Harvey sitting in that slipstream as we get ready for Brooklands. Who's going to be braver under braking? We've seen some very brave moves from Barry Clayton at the end of race 2, and it looks like he runs a little bit wide there, trying to carry too much speed potentially into Brooklands. That could have cost him pretty dearly. We only stand at about 0.3 of a second between the two drivers now. Who's going to be better on the exit of Luffield? Who's going to be able to hit the hammer down hard quicker? Who's going to carry more speed as we head down towards Copse now? It looks like it's going to be Andrew Harvey, who thinks about a move around the outside potentially. No, he's going to have the inside line through Copse, but it's not going to be enough to get the move done on the exit as we get ready for the Maggotts-Beckett's complex. In fact, it is Andrew Harvey able to seal that move, block him off there. Excellent move from Andrew Harvey heading through Copse to take P2 away from Barry Clayton. He's forced his way up through this field hard there, and he is enjoying the second spot on the podium at the moment. But for how long, because Barry Clayton is certainly going to have his fight back as we head down the hanger straight now. Is he going to think about a move under braking? Potentially up the inside there. No, he's going to go round the outside, but isn't going to think about a move there. It would have been a little bit dangerous for Barry, I can imagine. But he is still right up alongside him there. Barry seems to be very strong in Sector 3 here at Silverstone, as it looks like it is going to be Andrew Harvey taking that inside line once again, able to defend fairly comfortably from this point on the track. All this battling hasn't actually slowed them down too much compared to John Cole out in front. We've got a few laps remaining in this race, just over 5 minutes to go on the timer, and Andrew Harvey should be able to get back up to his very impressive kind of solo lapping pace in just a couple of moments' time. If he can keep Barry Clayton at bay, it's what he needs to focus on doing now. He needs to focus on just breaking away from Barry at this point, and maybe if they even work together and try to catch up to John Cole out in front. The gap now stands at about 4.5 seconds. It was standing at about 5 seconds at one point, so it is starting to shrink. But as Andrew Harvey tries to push towards John Cole, he's dragging Barry Clayton right with him. Barry Clayton, even though he conceded the position, is certainly not giving up without a fight. He wants that P2 back. But will it work? Let's find out as we see the driver, for some reason, rowing through the 8-speed gearbox on the shifter selected there. I would probably use the paddles if I were you, but that 8-speed gearbox being exercised around Silverstone, a mixture of very high speed corners and heavy braking zones such as Vale there, and the gap getting even smaller between Andrew Harvey and John Cole now. There, about 3.7 seconds. It's going to gradually tick down, I can imagine, until it could come to the wire. This will be very interesting to see as we enter the final couple of laps of this race now. Meanwhile, everyone else on track is looking fairly comfortable. Everyone's who put down a nice bit of time for themselves to occupy without too much challenge, without too much trouble, and they are lapping kind of nicely in about a 3 to 4 second, maybe even 10 seconds in some cases. Gap not closer than that. In particular, Andrew Harvey and Barry Clayton, as Barry Clayton is still trying to put the pressure on Andrew Harvey at this point in the race, and it looks to be that Andrew Harvey's P2 is at least P2 is secure. He can potentially think about catching up to John Cole as he hones in on him, getting ever closer and closer in the rearview mirror is Andrew Harvey to John Cole. John will be very aware that Andrew is there. He doesn't have to sweat too much, because it looks like Barry Clayton is right back up with Andrew Harvey, very strong through the final part of the lap. Is Barry Clayton. He's found a very nice chunk of time there, 1:4.9 on the previous lap for Barry Clayton. That was about 6 tenths of a second quicker than Andrew Harvey, and he's going to have to start thinking about defending from Barry Clayton once again, because Barry has all of a sudden picked up the pace and decided, no, I want this P2 back, and he's certainly fighting for it, as we see him head round Aintree now, the loop into Aintree. And on to the Wellington Straight. We've got just over 3 minutes to go in this race. Once again, the steering wheel disappearing, and it's currently, according to the 22.5 degrees on the climate controller. It seems to be quite toasty after a 25-minute race, but needs must, I guess. It seems to be fairly wintry outside, so it must be quite cold, even though according to the system track temperature currently standing at about 35 degrees. Plenty of grip on this track for these drivers, but about half a second between Will Andrew Harvey and Barry Clayton. It's an impressive bit of racecraft from Andrew Harvey, actually. Even in all his defending, he is certainly not losing time on John Cole. He's certainly not sacrificing his push towards a higher point scoring position for the sake of keeping Barry Clayton at bay. He's been able to multitask and manage both of those issues that he's currently facing in the final stages of this race, as we see Barry Clayton picking up that little bit of dirt there, getting fairly, not desperate, but getting, I imagine, quite kind of eager to get past Andrew Harvey out in front of him now. The gap standing at about half a second, as it has done for so long in this race. As I mentioned in race 1, it is just so impressive to me to see two drivers battling it out for so long. It's something that we don't even see that often in F1 anymore, and we are seeing it here in this Alfa Romeo GTA Championship. Drivers are able to keep on each other's toes for just so long without making any major errors. Very impressive bit of driving from everyone involved tonight. As we see then Barry Clayton heading through Vale, just able to close right back up to Andrew Harvey once again on the Exeter Club as well, looking very racy indeed. That car just turning in so nicely and carrying so much speed. He's going to think about a move up the inside potentially. He's too far back though, heading into turn 1, and used a very liberal approach to the track limits there as we head into turn 2, heading into Abbey there. Or rather, that's Farm Curve. Apologies for that one. About 3 tenths it sits at now as we head through the loop. Steering wheel going away once again. In fact, nothing on the speedo there, so I have no idea how quick the car is currently going. But I can tell you we're topping out at about 170 miles an hour for both these drivers, carrying quite a high downforce setup by the looks of things, as we see Barry Clayton using that slipstream, potentially thinking about a move up the inside, potentially thinking about a move under braking. No, Andrew Harvey's positioned his car perfectly to defend from Barry Clayton right behind him as we head round Luffield now. Barry Clayton is doing everything he can to try and force an error from Andrew Harvey, to try and find a way past, but Andrew Harvey is certainly delivering at this point in time. As we see the gap staying at about 4 seconds. It hasn't closed up as much as I thought it could have, with Andrew Harvey having to focus on Barry Clayton behind, but it is a very impressive job nonetheless to keep up with the leading pace despite being involved in such an intense battle there. As we see, I don't believe the drivers don't even have their seatbelts on. That's a oh dear, that's a massive safety concern. It's like a Ferrari at Barcelona. Drivers sitting on top of the seatbelts, I imagine, for a quicker exit for the champagne celebrations on the podium coming up in just a few moments' time, because we're about to hit 0 on the timer, and it is John Cole who's led this race for a few laps now from Andrew Harvey, who's currently fighting to keep P2 away from Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton wanting that P2 from Andrew in front of him. They've rather left Winning List behind just that a little bit now. Winning List not quite keeping up with these two. As we head round Vale, Barry Clayton once again looking very comfortable around Vale. Gets so close to Andrew Harvey out in front as we're now on the final lap of this race. As we see John Gore heading round turn 1 in the distance there. Heading round Abbey in the distance, getting ready for the village. The corner cuts back on itself. A bit of a technical challenge is this corner. Quite a few technically challenging corners on this circuit, but Barry Clayton is certainly challenged by Andrew Harvey out in front. Not able to find a way past yet. Will it happen on this, the final lap of this race now? We have had two very exciting races that have both gone on to the very end, and it looks to be the case once again here at race 2. They are side by side as we head down the Wellington Straight now. Under braking, who's going to be braver? Barry Clayton wanted to get that move done, but an excellent defence from Andrew Harvey. Cuts the corner just a little bit, riding over the apex, riding over the curbs there. Takes drastic action to ensure that Barry Clayton has not found a way past, although it looks to be that he's going to be looking for it again as we exit Luffield onto Woodcote and onto the Cox Corner now. It is still Andrew Harvey out in front, but for how long? Barry Clayton is looking fairly racy behind him now, but still hasn't found a way past somehow. There's been an impressive battle going on between these two for a few laps now to get ready for Nigel Beckett, who's going to come out on top. Andrew Harvey positioning his car absolutely perfectly to keep Barry Clayton behind, and it looks to be that he's not found a way past yet. Yes, it could be the case that this might go on to the very last corner, where Barry Clayton seems to be very comfortable. He seems to be very comfortable around Vale and Club. We might see him get that move done right at the very end of this race. Let's find out what happens as we go on board with John Cole as he gets ready to round Vale for the final time this evening. His victory looked like it could have been challenged at one point, but an impressive battle has kept the two cars behind him at bay, and what is going to be a very well-deserved victory. He's shown some impressive pace in qualifying and in race 1, and with some weaving to celebrate, John Cole rounds out race 2's running with his victory here at Silverstone. Andrew Harvey comes home P2, very well defending, very good job defending rather, against Barry Clayton. Commiserations to him after an impressive battle. He ends up P3. Well done to Andrew Harvey for a double podium here this weekend. Likewise for John Cole. Will Inglis coming home P4. Andrew Whitehead, a very well-deserved P5 after what was a disappointing start to this race for him. He ends up in P5 with some victory donuts there. Good to see these gorgeous sounding Giulia GTAms doing some victory donuts. Yeah, what a sight to behold. Alan Matthews coming home P6, Andrew Rammer P7, Anthony Gray coming home P8, Will Harper coming home P9, Rob Whitney coming home P10 in just a few moments' time. But yes, that has certainly been an exciting weekend's action here at Silverstone. It shows that the Giulia GTAm is going to be a beauty to behold, as we see Alan Matthews joining in on the donut action as well, which is good to see, as we see Rob Whitney crossing the line P10 there. John Baker leading that AM race, then coming home P11. He takes home another AM win to add to his tally this season. He is looking fairly comfortable in that AM championship for the time being. A little bit of a challenge for him in race 1, but seems to be ready for the fight. Guy Swarbrick very close behind him. He wanted a few more laps, taking home P2 in the AM race. He wanted a few more laps to see if he could have got that win. Paul Milburn coming home P3 in the AM race in P13. As we see Steve Knight coming home P14, and then Rosie Hodson P15, followed by Jack Hodson P60. Do we have anyone else doing some more victory donuts? We don't, so it looks like that is going to be it for the action here at Silverstone. I hope you have enjoyed watching these Giulia GTAms as much as I've enjoyed talking about them and watching them racing myself, and I will catch you in a fortnight's time for some more GTA action, and I'll catch you in a week's time as